Big adventures, welcome to another exciting video from Costa Rica, and today we're gonna be exploring the waterfalls at Cloudbridge Nature Reserve. Let's get into the vlog. In just a few minutes of walking in the nature reserve, we got to the first waterfall, which looked pretty impressive. So even though there was a sign saying that swimming is not recommended and the water was really cold, I still decided to go for it. At this point when I started, I realized why it's not recommended to swim here, because the current was so strong I barely managed to get to the other side. You can imagine some weaker swimmers could be swept off by the current. I got only a few meters from the bottom of the waterfall. I still had to be really careful not to get swept off by the strong current that could pull me underwater. As we're following the path farther along the river, we got to these cascades that look pretty amazing. Here I'm in the river again, but this time I'm trying to see how deep the water is so I can jump from the rock. After a little steep ascent up the hill, we got to this viewpoint where you can see a waterfall in the distance. This seems like a perfect place to fly a drone. Cloudbridge Nature Reserve, situated in a beautiful and remote cloud forest on the southwestern slopes of Costa Rica highest mountain, is a 700-acre private nature reserve dedicated to reforestation, research and education, which receives on average 4.5 meters of precipitation annually, compared to Serbia, where we receive only 500 millimeters. It's like 10 times less. That's not including the incalculable amount of daily fog drip we receive in the cloud forest. The average temperature ranges from 11 to 26 degrees Celsius, and the elevation in the reserve ranges from about 1,500 meters above sea level at the entrance of Cloudbridge to 2,650 meters at the highest boundary of the reserve. Cerro Chiripo National Park, to which Cloudbridge Trails connects, reaches a summit altitude of 3,800 meters. Over here you can see the reforestation project since 2002, when 50,000 trees were planted. So you can see some areas have considerably more trees, but the steep hilly areas are still deforested. And that's because on steep hills the water runs off easily and the soil dries out quicker, which makes it harder for young trees like these to survive. And especially during the dry season, when it doesn't rain for a few months, it's really hard for young trees to survive. It's still great that some people care and are trying to reforest these deforested areas, but at the same time more land is being cleared up for pastures somewhere else. I think better idea is to protect existing forests than planting new ones. We got closer to the waterfall that we saw from the earlier viewpoint, but you can't get all the way to it. Over here we can see the map of this trail, so you can do different loops around here. We plan to do the biggest one where there should be some big waterfall at the end. So this trail was following mostly this river, which was really amazing for refreshing and just admiring its beauty. Alright, and over here we got 2 more cascades and waterholes where you could potentially swim, but as I said, I was already in the water many times, which as I said was pretty cold, so I didn't want to get cold again, and it was a cloudy day, so the outdoor temperature didn't even reach 20 degrees. So you see guys, this has been deforested for about 20 years and still nothing growing there because the terrain is so steep, so it just keeps washing off all the seeds and everything, and it's so exposed that the trees or seedlings can't survive the dry season. So that's why it's so important to leave the trees on steep hills like this, because once you deforest it, it just stays like this forever. It's terrible. Alright, and here we got to another waterfall where we also had lunch. So these waterfalls are not very tall, but they look pretty amazing. Here the trail led us to this bamboo bridge crossing the river. It didn't look very stable first, but once you get on it, it was pretty good. Alright, here we got to the crossroad where we're gonna go on the left and make a bigger loop through the waterfall and come back away from the right. According to the sign, it should be only 1 kilometer to the waterfall. So at this point we're getting closer to the Chiripo National Park, and I could see that the trees are getting bigger and it was just more forested overall. Now the path started to go more up the hill away from the river. Over here we can see a big tree that's at least 100 years old, but most of the other trees are small, they're cut down only recently. Over here the path is descending back down to the river, but we see according to the map that it keeps going more, so the waterfall is not here just yet. Over here we spotted this interesting caterpillar, but apart from this we haven't seen many other animals. I think most animals stay down at the coast where it's warmer. Here we have to be really lucky to see some bigger animal. You see guys, this forest is just like a few bamboo trees and it's pretty rough here, so I think this was deforested a big time here and now it's just recovering slowly. Alright, and over here we got to this crossroad where there is a path straight, but it says research only, privado, and the path to the waterfall Catarata Victor is on the right. However, I was really curious to see what's there on this forbidden path, but just few minutes walking up the hill onto this path, it was all deforested, but at least we got a nice view from here. Alright, and over here we got to the borderlines with the Chiripo National Park, and you can see the trees are much bigger here. So I guess before the pastures were leading all up to here, and then the conservationists let the pastures grow into forest. You can see how much it will grow already. Alright, and here we connected back to the river one more time, but this time the waterfall should be just somewhere here, about 100 meters away, according to the Maps.me application. After we crossed the bridge, we didn't really see any path. We were just crossing through these big rocks and there is no marking where the waterfall is, so hopefully it's just somewhere here. Luckily enough, we got to this crossroad that says Catarata Don Victor, and I guess this is the waterfall, but looking at it, it's nothing impressive. The other waterfalls we've seen earlier today were much better, but it's still a great place to end the loop. It's something interesting. However, the weather here got considerably colder. I think it's even gonna rain soon, as every afternoon, so I'm gonna quickly try to swim here and take some pictures and drone footage. So even though the water was really cold, me practicing the cold showers almost every day gave me the advantage to go under the waterfall, which was really amazing. Alright, so here you can see the path where we came from. Here is the waterfall Don Victor. Now we're gonna go up the hill with this other path, making a loop around. Alright, so at this point it did start raining, so I changed from camera recording to iPhone, which is more waterproof. And imagine this is not even the main rain season here, but we notice it rains every day here at around 3 PM in the afternoon. So if you don't want to get wet at all, make sure you finish your trip before the time. You can see I put a towel over my head because I forgot a raincoat this time. It's mainly to protect electronics in my backpack. I was reading earlier, this place gets around 4,500 millimeters of precipitation per year, which is just insane. I think during the rain season it must rain here every day, all day. For example, Serbia, where we live, only gets around 500 to 700 millimeters per year. So you can see there is a sign Se Bende, which means for sale, and this area is all surrounded with a barbed wire fence, like just about any property in Costa Rica. So this is what people do here now. They buy a lot of land and then they make it as a nature reserve, and then they charge tourists for entrance. Just comparing it to Slovakia and Serbia, where even national park entrance is for free. Alright, and here we are passing through this area. There was obviously a landslide before. That's because they're stupid and they deforested a steep hill, and with that all the rain, the soil just slides down. It could be even dangerous now to go through here, because I see some parts here are still could separate during these heavy rains. That's the problem with deforesting steep hills. Once it's deforested, it's extremely hard to regrow the forest here. And especially after a big landslide, it's almost impossible. And this is the problem with the privatization of these areas, that people just cut down the forest for cattle grazing, and they don't care if it's a steppe area or not. They just deforest everything because they put the money into it. And again, the problem is the animal agriculture, because people are buying meat and supporting more cattle grazing. So it seems for now there is more money in that than in tourism.
It gets washed off, so if you want to plant trees, it's much harder, because all that's left is just really rocky soil. So that's how you want to keep the trees, especially these big ones. They really hold the soil in place, you can see, and that's why you're not gonna have a landslide over here, because these trees are gonna hold the soil together. But you see the Albania, for example, all the hills are just the big piles of rocks, and I think this is gonna happen the same here, because they have even more rain, more torrential rain that washes off the topsoil even more, and there is nobody that can protect it, because everything is private here. So only the people can change themselves. You see, guys, we just connected from up here, and this is the Los Quetzales trail, and we went around this way, which was much farther. You can see here on the map, I think we're here. You can see it goes much more around, and this one was more straight. There's also much more elevation and stuff.
Here we're gonna make another loop, so on the way there we're going through these spots along the river to see the waterfalls, but now we're just gonna make a shortcut here with this bigger road. And here you can see another path that leads to the Cerro Chiripo, which is the highest peak of Costa Rica. It's 3,821 meters high, but it's very far to get there. It's about 25 kilometers of hiking and over 2,000 meters of elevation just to get there. People usually do it in 2 days, sleeping in some of the huts up there. But I think we decided not to go there because it was complicated to get a permit to hike there. And from the videos we saw hiking on Cerro Chiripo, it was nothing special. It's the same nature, and up there it's even more deforested. It will be pretty much just for the feeling to be on top of Costa Rica, or we might do it some other time. Alright, and here we connected back to the crossroad where we're flying a drone, so we went down there to see this waterfall that you can see in the distance, but you couldn't really get all the way to the waterfall. Here is again that steep deforested hill that can't be forested again. Alright, and just before the exit of the reserve, we saw there was another path, but it said private, but we decided to go for it anyway to make the most of this trip. And interestingly, this path led along more amazing waterfalls that we didn't see before. It's really a shame, this fucked up privatization. Even though you pay in one nature reserve, you don't have access to another part with more waterfalls. They're really making this Costa Rican nature into some amusement park where you have to pay to every different section.
See guys, this is what happens when you deforest trees for the animal grazing. There's a cows or sheep something over there, and this is becoming like Albania. All the topsoil is just gets washed off to the rocks, and this is what you get. Just degraded environment completely. So sad that people still eat meat and support this shit. So thanks for watching, and as always, stay healthy
And stay adventurous.